if you can, well,
all set.
Yes. So everybody, it is December 3rd, 2019. And this is the weekly meeting of Kubernetes SIG Docs. We are now being recorded thanks to Jim Angel. Really, I think the meeting is being jointly run by myself and Jim. And Jared, because Jared is taking notes, Jim is running the recording, and I'm just saying the words until other people can be persuaded to talk. Do we have any new contributors with us this week? If so, please speak up and introduce yourselves. Selves.
Hi, it's Simon Forst here. I haven't joined for a long time, so but having been at KubeCon, I've got the ability to get involved again. So yeah.
Awesome. Welcome back, and thanks for reintroducing yourself.
Thank you.
I saw your name and I thought, okay, that looks vaguely familiar, but so appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'll bite as well. My name's Jamie Duncan. I was at Red Hat for about 8 years and recently switched over to VMware and am looking a little more upstream. So instead of sort of focusing downward, I'm focusing upward. And docs are something I've done a fair amount of writing, and I actually enjoy them. So
excellent.
A little sadism.
Wait. We have technical writers on the call. Careful what you say.
I think they have to have that level of self-awareness by now.
So anyway, welcome or re-welcome to both of you. I will just go quickly through the updates and reminders since everybody can see them also. I don't see Raji on the call, but I believe there's a time difference pane there. So she's wrangling this week. Jared, you're on deck for next week, and thank you very much. And we don't have anybody assigned for the last 2 weeks of the year for what I assume are sort of obvious reasons. And please check the PR Wrangler shifts so you know when you're coming up. As someone who managed to drop the ball earlier this year on her own, let me advise you, please do so. That was embarrassing as a lead, especially. So do we have anyone on the call to give us a 1.17 update? We have, it looks like not, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and I kind of took a look at that issue. If we don't have anyone from the release team here present, when I peeked at this, it looks like one of the commits from master got merged into the release branch. And in part of that, somebody didn't sign the CLA or something was signed and then it was merged. I don't know what exactly caused it, but we're seeing, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Joe. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yeah, no problem. So essentially, the master branch is copied over to a release branch as part of the release process.
Yep.
And on Monday, they're planning on cutting the new release. But right now, we can't merge, at least not gracefully, the synchronization between the branches without the CLA signing issue resolved. That's kind of the background that I caught from it.
Yep. This is not the first time we've had this situation, and it isn't necessarily a real failed CLA check. Based on what I'm recalling, there is Zach.
Hello.
Zach, would you like to take over as Jim and I are sort of jointly running at the moment.
Well, why mess with success?
For certain values of success, right? We were just looking at this issue with the 117 release, and I have a vague recollection of encountering this in releases past, where it's an artifact of broken commit histories. I might be having that wrong. Also, Steve, I thought I saw you on the call, and I wondered whether you had any recollection of this kind of problem. Or Jared.
Sorry, I've been listening out of the corner of my ear. So this is about.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
This is about merge conflicts as we approach a release, right?
It looks like it's not a merge conflict so much as there is at least one commit without a valid CLA. Well, it's got a CLA check. And this just looks like a familiar problem when there wasn't really a CLA problem from releases past. I don't know that we need to necessarily continue to flog the horse, but I just thought I'd call it out in case there's anybody, including Steve, on the call who remembers what.
Just vaguely remembering this. Sometimes people sign the CLA, but it's actually not recorded, and they need to go back and re-sign the CLA. So that, I know that happened a lot. I thought we fixed that issue though.
Yeah, and
I did too.
I have no memory of this problem, so I won't be much use here.
Okay.
What does happen sometimes is folks with multiple GitHub accounts will have they'll be signed in on different machines, and they'll work on different machines. And so you'll get a commit from the same person, but through a non-signed CLA account. It would be best ideally to resolve the actual CLA issue. And so I'm kind of curious, how did this get into the release branch in the first place, since the PR where this originated should have been blocked. But if there is a legitimate and simultaneously totally dirty way to resolve this, if the branch manager or someone with someone working on that in the actual branch itself for the repo rebases all of those, makes an empty commit and then rebases and squashes everything, that's a ton of commits to squash potentially, but that will resolve the conflict. If you squash all of the previous commits into into an empty commit, just to have a commit space there, that will remove the CLA conflict. But it's shady.
It's ugly. It destroys history. Yes. If I recall correctly, I did have to resort to that one time.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the first time I've seen. Well, I've been in and out of involvement, but this is the first time I've seen this issue in quite a long time. So yeah, it is curious. Anyway, I guess it'll get resolved offline. But with any luck, maybe this was a useful conversation for whoever's helping out or winds up helping out.
Sure.
So moving on. KubeCon update. I believe we have any number of KubeCon attendees, amongst whom I was not, who can provide some information.
So I put this here as a place to talk about, to thank Jim for putting together the Contributor Day experience for Docs at the last minute, and doing a great job with it. Jim stepped in when our original organizer just had too much going on, and saved the day. So many thanks to Jim for setting up a day that I think was ultimately pretty successful. We had as one does at these contributor days, had folks kind of come in and out, but I think Jim pulled off the first time that I've seen this in multiple years of KubeCons. More people came in as the day went on, and the afternoon session was more well attended and more valuable to contributors than the morning. So Jim, do you want to add any feedback or thoughts about that?
Yeah, I would agree with what you said. The attendance definitely improved as the day went on, and we did the deep dive into Hugo, which kind of brought light to the fact that, we focus a lot on documentation, but there's not a ton of conversation around the tooling or some of the infrastructure pieces and components that we inherently support by doing documentation. So I thought that was pretty valuable, and I think there's more opportunities for that type of presentation, that type of kind of deep dive on the technical side. I thought it was definitely worthwhile and something. It was spur of the moment, but I think it proved to be more valuable than originally thought, even from myself. So that worked out great. And we got pretty lucky there in the early morning session. It was, I would say, somewhere in the middle of the road contributors. There was only one brand new contributor that joined us for the morning session, and Luke was able to grab them into a one-on-one training session. So I think we could handle that a little bit better in the future. If we do have somebody that is brand new and a lot of intermediate contributors, there needs to be a way to handle that dynamic. And the same thing as if it were to be flipped. If we had a bunch of new folks to Kubernetes, how do we deal with the intermediate folks that are attending? So overall, I thought it was a pretty good success. I would like to have some more planning involved, but you got to deal with the cards you're dealt. And I think we had a very successful summit.
Yeah, from reading some of the write-ups of the event, it seems like there was a lot of challenges logistically with everything that happened in San Diego, but people really appreciated the heroics of both CNCF and the contributors trying to keep everything on rails. So that was a very roundabout thank you, Jim.
Sorry, folks. I am switching audio because I realize you're probably having a hard time hearing me. I can't get out about this box.
That's okay. The next item was something about the fourth Tuesday meetings.
Yes, so this is something that came up at the APAC meeting last week, where we meet the fourth Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on what side of the world you're on, and we meet with a more Asia-friendly time. And what's happened is with daylight savings and all that fun stuff that we like to do in the States, is pushed our APAC time meeting to be now during lunchtime of the Korean folks. So it was brought up if we could potentially bring up for a group for a decision, lazy consensus, to move the APAC meeting up earlier 1 hour. That was the suggested solution for this. To me, it doesn't matter too much to me personally what time it's at. It's never going to be a good time for anybody, and moving it an hour earlier seems pretty low impact for the existing state. That's kind of my opinion. Thoughts?
Moving it an hour earlier makes it marginally more available to folks on the East Coast of the US also.
Yeah, I'm not complaining either, Jennifer.
For me, at least, the difference between 9 and 10 p.m. is bigger than an hour. Not hours are equal in value and sort of impact on schedule. So although I realize, like on this meeting, I believe there's only Brad and myself on Eastern.
Wait, sorry. There's somebody eating and not muted. So if you're eating and not muted, please mute. Thanks. Sorry, Jennifer, continue.
That's okay, Jared. Thank you for calling it out. Anyway, so I believe it's only Brad and myself on East Coast time, but Jim is only an hour behind us, right? You're in Austin?
Yep.
So I think, taking it a little earlier will make it easier to spread the burden of running also. Because there was a bit of a scramble it was last week, right, Jim, when you said that you would run it. And because I said, look, 10 o'clock, especially right before what turned into a deranged holiday for me, was just more than I could manage. But it was still pretty late for Jim too. So
Right. Yeah. No, and not a problem at all. And so what I plan on doing here, it sounds like we're all pretty much in alignment, is I'll send an email out to the SIG Docs mailing list, make sure it's visible for everyone. We had some time to kind of chew on this for a little bit, and then we'll PR that change if there's no major objections.
Perfect.
So next up is your item, Brad.
Is Zach on the hook to change that calendar invite, or Jim, are you going to do it? Who is doing that?
Oh, that's a good question. I think I can do it.
Okay. All right, cool.
Thanks, Jared.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, now Brad.
Oh, thank you. So I don't know if it was about a month ago or so, we had a team that built a new tutorial for how to configure a Kubernetes microservice, Java-based, Java microprofile-based. And they did it just like all the other tutorials that we have. They built it all on Cata Kota. And I think we even gave a demo, and most people found it very positive. And then one of the action items was, we were, as a group, going to have a discussion to think about, well, what do we do with this? Is this something we can host, or how could the team move forward if people want to build these new tutorials? It's new content that would help bring in a greater audience to Kubernetes, targeting J2E developers, but we never really told the team how we move forward. So that was kind of the discussion. Like I said, it's like all the other Cata Kota tutorials. Now, Cata Kota has been acquired by O'Reilly. I assume everybody's seen that. I don't know how that affects our decision. But yeah, this was to try and get sort of a thought process or an idea of what should be the next step with this type of tutorial. I mean, obviously the team would love for it to be hosted with all the other tutorials. I don't know if that's an option or not.
I can see two options.
Sure.
One is we could.
I think it's fine to add the microservices tutorial to the existing tutorial collection.
Wait.
Yeah, with the Sorry, am I?
Yeah, I think your audio. Steve and you were both chatting at the same time.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries. It seems like Steve was mentioning a few options, and then you were.
Yeah, go Steve.
Yeah, Steve. Sorry, go ahead.
I'll post these links, but I think there are two places it can go. It can go in our docs under tutorials, Kubernetes basics. We could just add a module. It might have to be, sort of ported over to the format we use, because there was some back in the day. I took the original Cata Kota pages and did some changes on them to make them so they'd fit in our doc set. And the other place I suppose it could go is on this site called Kubernetes Bootcamp, where we have a duplication of all those same tutorials. So I'll stick both those links in the chat here.
Okay. Does anybody here have a preference of where they think it should go? And, we try and, I'm sure the team would be happy to do any reformatting, Steve, that may be necessary. But does anyone have a preference between those two that we should try first and see if it works, or?
Do we have any data about which pages get visited more often?
We do, specifically that Ben Hall at Cata Kota has essentially disavowed the Kubernetes Bootcamp site. So I know that Cata Kota has a strong preference to host in Kubernetes.io. So Brad, my only concern with these tutorials is that we not run into what we've already experienced with Cata Kota, namely that we're doing all of the infrastructure hosting, and we're also doing like issue triage. They're not staying on top of triaging their own content. Okay. So no more white elephants. if they want to host this content, then I think that's great, but it needs to be clearly theirs. And if it does not, if they don't maintain it, if it stales out over time, if we start getting issues for it that aren't addressed, say within 30 days, then it goes away. And I want us to be really clear about that.
I think that's very fair. So that gives them a place to host it, right? But they have to maintain it.
Yes.
Okay. And that would be under our Kubernetes basics. Is that what we're thinking? Is that the decision? Put it under Kubernetes basics. Let's try and put it there. And they should be able to ideally maintain and triage and what have you, correct?
If Steve agrees with that, then I agree with it.
Okay. And Steve, they might follow up with some questions on how they do things, and I'll have them connect with you. Great. Very familiar with this model. Quick funny story, in a previous open source land, we had the same kind of thing where everybody maintained their storage drivers, and the person who was supposed to maintain it left IBM, and the bugs went too long, and these people called me up and threatened to take all our storage drivers out of tree. And long story short, to make that group that was the Cinder group and OpenStack happy, I literally gave them a developer for a full year to make amends for the transgressions and my cell phone number. So we understand that these are legitimate things to do. If you don't maintain the stuff, you can get things pulled out, and companies have to stand behind what they do. So been there and completely think that is truly fair and the right way to go. Anyway, I thought it was a funny story.
It is, and it's also reassuring.
Boy, the OpenStack Center team had me over a bear. I'm like, fine, take my best developer. You can have him for a year to fix anything you want. Anyway, good stuff. So I will let Mikal know, and Steve, they'll be in contact, and we'll make sure it's clear. Cool. Thank you very much.
I had a quick thing about updating the 4th Tuesday meeting. I just noticed that the 4th Tuesday of December is Christmas Eve. Seems like maybe we should just do the 3rd Tuesday instead. Does that sound good to everybody?
It sounds reasonable to me, with the caveat that I will be out at that time. So so this is maybe a good time to jump ahead to the wrapping up the year bit, to talk about vacations, and who will be around and who won't. So for that 3rd week of December, like Jim, will you be around?
Yeah, I'll be around.
And I'll be around. And if we move it an hour earlier for that meeting, I'm willing to be back up too, Jim.
Okay. Okay. Then I will move that meeting as well. I just set the time 1 hour earlier, but I will set this particular meeting 1 week earlier as well.
And then for the normal meeting that happens that week, for that Christmas week or the holiday week there, we're just going to cancel pretty much all SIG Docs meetings, and so we can do the APAC one before it and then cancel for the week of Christmas.
That sounds totally reasonable.
Okay.
Probably for the following week too, because it's New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
Right.
So I would just cancel 2.
Right. Let me see if I can actually do this. I don't know if I'm the meeting owner. Oh, I am. Hey. I'm wary of clicking a button named delete because I don't want to delete the entire meeting series.
So many assiduous note takers. This is great.
Okay, I don't want to do performance meeting deletion. So I will take care of that within the next hour. But Jared, you're saying?
Oh yeah, I just had to duck out to another meeting, so unfortunately, like I got to run. But just give me the Doxy status later.
Sounds good. Very quickly, it's in progress. There was some question about whether Luke Perkins is developing a theme named Tracked. There was some question about whether that might be a good alternative to Doxy. Luke says no. So we're back on the Doxy wagon, and we've been wrangling all of the boring contractual details in-house and herding all of those cats through all of the right gates has been a challenge, but now everyone is aligned. So I'm going to reach out to the contractors and let them know to go ahead. So, crossing my fingers for a site redesign by the end of the year. Well, I shouldn't say a site redesign, applying the template by the end of the year.
That's quick work.
It is.
The end of the year is coming up so fast.
It is. That may be unrealistic, but we'll see.
Cool. So that's it on Doxy Status.
That is the Doxy Status, yes.
So we have wrapped up issues around vacation and end of year scheduling changes. I'm guessing this number comes from you, Zach, on track for 18,000 issues, PRs.
Well,
do you want to give us
yes.
some context for this?
Yes, so we're on track to pass the 18,000 mark, which is pretty significant. I think we are, we're the second in terms of like number of PRs overall and PRs per year. It's Kubernetes, K8s at the top. And then I think it's a two-way tie or close enough between us and SIG testing for the volume of PRs that we handle per year. So we're doing incredibly good work. I think all of it, like everyone who contributes to SIG Docs and to K website, to be in the top 3 for volume, for throughput of information handled is fantastic. So that's absolutely worth celebrating. And I wanted to highlight that because I know it can feel like we stay heads down sometimes and we don't really see the impact of what we do. And I wanted to show folks how much of an impact we make. All during KubeCon, I got nothing but compliments and nothing but appreciation from folks at the top of the game. I mean, like folks like Chris Nova saying, thank you for everything that you do. And that's down to the amazing contributors who make up this community. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you all. You're doing excellent work. I am so proud.
Yay, all of us. And thank you, Zach, for your continued fearless leadership. Does anyone have any other items they'd like to add? We still have, well, depending on which schedule you adhere to, 17 minutes or 27 minutes, which we don't have to fill. We can give them back. But if anyone has anything else they'd like to add, we have time to cover it.
I want to raise visibility on the PR Wrangler schedule. So when I created the schedule for Q3 and Q4, I added a slot for the first week of the year, but the person that I originally allotted to it is Misty Linville, and Misty has moved on as an approver and no longer has any active involvement in the Kubernetes. So we need to find a replacement for that particular week. And we also need to generate the PR Wrangler schedule for the first 2 quarters. I will be very frank, I hate this job. So this is my request, that someone else please do it.
Do we have, so 2 items. I will take the week of January 5th.
Thank you.
And I will update the list in GitHub. Again, I'm not going to perform it. I will do it after the meeting is over. Jim, how do you feel about scheduling 20 minutes to make a schedule together?
Yeah, I'm all for it. I think, and I don't want to be putting words or projects into people's mouths, but I think Zach Arnold was looking at automating this with some form of a bot or something or another.
I remember that conversation too.
Yeah,
well,
I know he's a very busy person, so I don't want to assign duties to someone not attending this meeting. But if he's working on that, that'd be great to pull Zach in the convo as well.
I'm going to add an item here. I'll just add these things.
Jennifer and Jim, I would ask you to include Caitlin and Brad in that process so that they can see how that sausage is ground.
Sounds good. Since I was going to be making it up anyway, that's why I asked for Jim's help.
We can get more people to make it up. It's all good.
Oh yeah. No. I'm happy. I'm just not quite. I'm not quite sure. I mean, I'm happy to make it a larger collective effort. I'm just not quite sure how much informed leadership I can provide, shall we say. I guess the question that I have, and we can finalize an answer to this offline too, is aside from Misty, are there other current PR Wranglers who should be taken off the list? Or is the list otherwise complete? And, you know, I'm happy to sort of figure out, I'm happy to do it manually or, you know, sort of figure out some arbitrary sort of in my head manually implemented algorithm for it. But getting the list right would be helpful.
Sure. Jennifer, can I swap screen sharing with you for a moment?
Oh, absolutely.
Please. Thank you. All right.
I mean, I have an alternative to a stable list too, which is I'm willing to make a preliminary list soon and like poke individuals, but that seems,
So this is, you can see up here, this is in K website. This is in the top level of the repo. It's the owner's sub-aliases file. And from lines 37 to 57, this block, SIG-docs-en-owners, these are the English approvers. So this is the approver list that goes into, this is the population pool for the PR Wrangler schedule.
But
so,
Andrew is still on there, so it's clearly not complete. Yeah. But I mean, I happen to know that he shouldn't be assigned, but that's.
Cody Clark, I think. Cody hasn't. He's been around to observe from time to time, but he hasn't actively contributed PRs, I think, since like March or April. So yeah, we need to freshen this list. But I know that Ryan McGinnis is still around, and like he just did a PR shift, like maybe just like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yep, I saw that.
Yeah, Tim Fogarty needs to go off as well. So yeah, we need to like coordinate offline. And here I will take an action item to freshen this owner's alias list now.
Oh, excellent. That'll help a lot.
Let's see. PR Wrangler schedule needs building for Q1, Q2, 2020. Jennifer, Jim, Brad, and Caitlin will create. Doxy will freshen owners aliases list. Jennifer, can I assign the PR to you for review?
Yes, please do so.
Okay. Very good.
That's great. Then that list will be fresh, and we can work directly from that without having to question its entries. Awesome. So Brad had to drop, but I will take an action item to schedule a meeting for, well, ping people on Slack and get a meeting together so that we can build out the first half of next year together.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks to Jim and Caitlin for helping.
Cool. I have one quick topic if we're ready to move on.
Go for it.
So just more of a, I don't know if it's a heads up or the way to, I don't know the way to actually phrase this, but when I was at KubeCon or the Contributor Summit, there's a lot of intersections from Docs and Contribex and from the release team and some folks doing similar initiatives to onboard people. And what does that process look like? I know Contribex has the non-coding contributor working group, I believe it is. And so, for example, when I was at the Contribex deep dive, they're currently looking at like a markdown linter for some of their documentation or to put in place of the repo. And that's something that we've been looking into at SIG Docs is a markdown linter. And there's some discussion going on. It's not really the gist of this conversation, but really it was more about I would like to work with some of the other chairs and the other SIGs to at least have two-way communication. So as part of our meetings, there could be a minor Contribex update as it applies to Docs or release, or kind of at least those 2 or 3 SIGs that have some overlap there, so we don't run into the situation where we're all isolated working on, you know, linters or closing issues a certain type of way. So I wanted to open up the discussion, open it up here first for comments before just hunting down people on Slack.
I think that sounds great. Not any duplicate development that we can reduce through collaboration is excellent.
Absolutely, and I think that's the kind of really focused cross-SIG collaboration that can foster sort of more cross-SIG community building too. Seems like we've got to a point where there's an interesting kind of dance that I've been observing between, well, Contribex and Docs especially, and that's been going on for quite a while now. The dance's choreography has changed slightly, just to continue murdering the metaphor. And I think that doing something like this that's really focused could really help sort of keep the collaboration flowing.
Cool, sounds good. I'll start those chats.
Awesome.
Well, I got a question.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, is the blog part of the SIG Docs? I know Caitlin was a part of that. Is that managed or run through this group, or is that a separate thing?
It is managed through. Oh, sure. No, it's a SIG Docs project, and it's but the blog is a working group under SIG Docs. Caitlin, are you around? Do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, I mean, you covered it, but I'm on if there's any questions that I can answer about it.
Yeah, so I was at the Contributor Summit, and Gwen had given me a bunch of links that were just ripe with content and like really, really good videos and datas and GitHub links. And I was wondering if there's a way to distribute some of this really good content on the blog. I see that there's like links for Contributor Summit San Diego schedule announced. I'm just wondering if there's like any kind of a follow-up from San Diego for, you know, to put more content out there.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything come through yet, but I think that would be a great idea if that would be something you're interested in putting together.
Okay. I was just mainly, more than anything, curious if that was part of this group, and I guess it is. Thanks.
Yeah, and if you're on Slack, I can send you, actually I can drop some of the links here too in the Zoom chat.
Okay, thanks.
Awesome. We still have a few more minutes. Any other items? Okay, I will do my my Zach imitation and count down for closing the meeting. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Whoops. Something didn't go quite right there. Truly numerate I am sometimes. Anyway, that's a SIG meeting. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you.